Hey everybody, Teresa here from Inspiration Cards. Hope you're all doing well and welcome to the second Stamp Jammies class featuring the Quite Curvy stamp set. I hope you guys enjoyed the class last week, and this week we're actually going to be making this card right here. So we're going to be using a couple of different colors on top of the Just Jade. So also we have some shaded spruce or a darker green, and we also have some crumb cake, which is a light brown. So if you didn't end up adding those ink pads to your class kit, that's okay. If you're like me, then you've got quite the craft stash, and so you can just grab from what you've got in there. All right, let's get started. So for this week's card, what you'll have in your second package is a shaded spruce cardstock base, 2 larger pieces of basic white, 1 smaller piece of basic white that I punched out with one of our punches, and a few elements from the In Good Taste Wooden Elements pack. So I'm going to set these off to the side, and we'll get started with our punched out circle, which is going to have our phrase. So as you can see, typically it is a curved phrase, but what I'm going to show you is with just a little bit of patience, you can actually turn this into a straight line. So all you have to do when you're attaching this to your block is just slow it down as you're pressing, and that will get you a pretty straight line. It may not be perfect, but that's okay. It'll be pretty darn close. All right, so for the phrase, I'm actually going to be using shaded spruce. If you didn't end up getting shaded spruce, or you don't happen to have a darker green, you can just use the Just Jade that came with your class kit. And I'm actually going to also, this will be the back of my piece. So just to make sure, or you can use a scrap piece of paper. So just to make sure no extra ink ends up on my circle. I'm gonna give that a quick clean just to make sure everything's still nice and lined up. And now I'm going to stamp the other half. So the For You, again with shaded spruce. Here we go, and this time I'm going to flip this to the other side. And again, just to make sure if there's any extra ink that it doesn't go on my circle. There we go. So there's our phrase. I'm going to set that off to the side. And then this will go, once I flip it over, onto the inside of our card. So whichever piece of the basic white that you want to use is fine. They're both the same size. I'm going to grab one of our little birdie friends here to stamp just down here in the corner. And this guy's actually going to be stamped with Just Jade, just to bring that a little bit of contrast to the inside of the card, because you will see the shaded spruce. That will be our border. There we go. So just gently tapping onto your ink pad and then press down onto your cardstock. And there you go. All right, so I'm going to set that aside now as well. And we're going to get to the other piece of basic white, which will end up being our card front. So what will be going on your card front is the larger viney image. There we go. And you'll need quite a large block for that. This one comes pretty close. So there we go. You can use shaded spruce or you can use just jade. I'm going to use just jade to ink this one up. And make sure you get that thoroughly covered. Give that a little wipe. Of course, make sure I don't touch my cardstock. And that's just going to go straight on a diagonal, if you can actually do that. Move that out of the way. And there we go. And that little blip in the middle, no big deal, because that's actually going to be covered up by our phrase. So next, what you'll want to grab is you'll want to grab the floral image. So a little bit of vine, a little bit of florals on there. And that we're going to stamp with shaded spruce. And you don't have to fully ink it. This is actually just going to get tucked behind the phrase. So that's just going to get off to the side here on an angle, just like that. And I'm going to give that just a quick little clean. There we go. And on this one, I'm actually going to ink up the other half. And that's going to go off to the side here, like that. Get that one more quick clean in between. And one last time. Again, you don't have to ink up the full image. And that's actually just going to go a little bit off the page here. There we go. And then the next piece you'll want is this teeny tiny little leafy branch. And this is where I'm pulling in a little bit of crumb cake. So just like with our other stamps, just gently tap it onto your ink pad. And then just a few randomly around in the gaps. Now you don't want to get too close to the center, because you do want this to stick out from behind your punched circle. There we go. All right, so let's just close that up so I don't end up sticking my finger in there. And I'm going to give that a second to dry and fold my shaded spruce card base. I'm just going to take my bone folder and fold that up, that nice crisp edge to it. And then here's our piece that's going to go on the inside of our card. So I'm just going to give that a quick little flip. I'm just going to use some Stampin' Seal. You can use tape runner or whatever kind of your go-to adhesive is to stick that on there. I like using the Stampin' Seal because it's super strong, and I just need to actually put around the corners. And I don't have to worry about it moving out of place from there. So there we go. So there's the inside of our card. So still lots of room to write whatever you want on the inside. And now here's our card front. As you can tell, there's a lot of overlap going on in the center. But the nice thing about this card is is that that will all disappear once we add on our phrase. So there we go, just center that as best you can on the front of your cardstock. There we go. Now before we add on our phrase, we do have our wooden elements that we're going to add on here. So I'm just going to use the Tombow liquid glue here. If you have a fine tip glue pen, that'll work actually really well too. So you don't need to put glue over the whole entire piece. You definitely want to make sure that base is good and stuck. And then I just add a little bit up the sides, up the center. There we go. And that's just going to go right here, like that. We have our other piece here, and again, just a little bit, mostly along the bottom, but then you put a little bit up the center and along the sides. You don't have to put gobs and gobs of liquid glue on there. And that's just going to peek out right here. Just press and hold that for a couple of seconds. And then we've got our last piece here. This will be a little trickier. So if you just start with one kind of blob and then spread that out, that will make it pretty easy to get the coverage that you want to make sure that this stays in place. And that's just going to peek out right here. Now, to add our phrase, we're going to pop this up using some dimensionals. Usually what I would do is I would actually put the dimensionals on the back. But in this case, because I have the wooden elements, I'm actually going to stick them on the card front itself. There we go, just like that. And then just peel off the papers. Oops, there we go. And that'll just sit right there. Covers up the overlap you get from your images, but you also have your little sprigs of crumb cake sticking out the side as well. So I hope you enjoyed this week's card from the Stampin' Jammies class. I'm going to show you one other sample using the Quite Curvy bundle. So this is the stamp set and dies combined together. So as you can see, this phrase, I left it curved and then just stuck a couple of sprigs out and had my bird sticking, just sitting on top. So almost like this is the branch. And then I used 2 different dies to create this effect. So I've got some purple posy as my card base, and then some mint macaron and a little bit of mossy meadow. Usually I stick with just 2 colors on a card, but I think this actually worked really nicely with that pop of the darker green that the mossy meadow gives. So there you have it, our second card from this month's Stampin' Jammies online card class using the Quite Curvy stamp set. Next week, I'll share our third card, but in the meantime, if you want to check out what other projects I've got going, you can check out my blog at inspirationcards.com, or if you have any questions about my online card classes or how to get your hands on what I'm using, just send me an email at inspirationwiththeresa@gmail.com. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon.